stand? Just maybe do a little of each.
All right.
All right. Well, welcome to Pyramid Plus Approach. This is session 5 on nurturing responsive relationships. And thank you for using your small screen today as we're having some technical difficulties getting things to talk to each other. So we'll try the best to coordinate with each other as we move through the training today. All right, our next screen is going to be our thanks to our Pyramid Plus funders. So these are the supports and the funders that make this work possible of Pyramid. And our agenda then today. So our learning objectives and logistics we'll go over here at the very beginning, just like each session. We're going to talk about the importance of building relationships with children today. It's one of my favorite topics. We're going to do a reflective inventory activity. We're going to talk about the research that supports the importance of building relationships and those evidence-based practices for building relationships with children. We're going to talk about the hot button and reframing activity that we did in our last session. We're going to kind of look back at that again in a different way. We're going to talk about essential caregiving characteristics, attachment and communication, using positive feedback and encouragement, and then of course some time for reflective review, thought seeds, and then wrap it up with just some feedback on quality improvement, on how we can do better in the trainings that we do, because we are all here learning together, and you know that's the joy of Pyramid. It's always learning. Always learning. So our learning objectives today, so next screen, is going to be the importance of building and nurturing relationships with children. The participants, you should be able to identify communication skills and other strategies that will help engage children in trust, nurturing, and responsive relationships. And we're going to learn about the research that supports using that positive descriptive feedback to children, and we're going to practice doing it.
Oh, yay.
So, yay. There's one skill to implement in your classroom. I would say start there. All right, logistics. So our ground rules that we have some shared agreements from our previous training that we're going to value all opinions. We're going to listen with the intent of understanding we're all at different places in our pyramid journey and in our early childhood journey. That we're going to honor where everyone is in that journey, and we want everyone to participate. So those of you who like to participate a lot, please participate, but also please give space for people who are more reflective, that they have time also to speak and to be present. So if you could just put your personal devices away for a little bit. We will have a break here in about half an hour, and that you'll be able to use your devices and check in with those you need to. The parking lot here, so there's some sticky notes here. Feel free to, when we're on a break, or if there's something that comes that right away you want to think about, you can write it on a sticky note on the table, put it up there on the parking lot, and when we'll make sure we take time to address the things on the parking lot. We have some handouts today, so you're going to have a little packet here. This is going to be our first activity, our reflective inventory today, and then we're going to do a little reframing activity. We're going to talk a little bit about attachment. So we're talking about building relationships and the importance of attachment, some strategies for using encouraging language, promoting responsive relationships with infants and toddlers. So those of you who are here, you know that one of our focuses that we want to make sure is that we do bring Pyramid to infants and toddlers. So here's some strategies based on their age that we can use with those infants and toddlers. And then the 7 characteristics of a responsive teacher. How do we know if we're being responsive? What does that look like? What does that sound like? So it's a little cheat sheet. You can even put it up on your wall. Building teacher and child relationships. We have a little action plan, just like we do in every pyramid session. Time to reflect, time to think about how you can implement what we talk about into your practice right away. And then, of course, some thought seeds and feedback forms for you today. Here you go, Leah.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. All All right, the restrooms are located outside the door and to the left around the corner. So feel free if you need to use the restroom, feel free to do that. If you want to stand up for a while and move about to take care of your body, please feel free to do that. And okay, before we start, we're going to nurture ourselves for just a minute. So I have a lot of energy, so I like to start each session by just some breathing, get ourselves kind of centered. We've all kind of come from different places today, and so we just want to kind of get with where we are today. So just get comfortable in your chair. And we're just going to do a couple breaths in and out. Just kind of feel your body sitting in your chair. Kind of turn your head from side to side. Raise your shoulders up and down. Take a big belly breath. Feel your legs and your body grounded to the floor, to the earth. And recognize that we're all here together. All right, you want to open your eyes? I feel better. Sometimes I get a little nervous training. All right, our first slide should be nurturing and responsive relationships. So we are looking at a copy of the pyramid, and we've talked in previous sessions about effective workforces. So systems, policies that promote the use of evidence-based practices, which all the pyramid practices and things we're going to talk about are evidence-based. So research has been done to show that when we utilize these strategies, that research has shown them to be effective, which is super important. All right, and so we're going to be on this second layer, nurturing responsive relationships. So reporting supportive, responsive relationships among adults and children is an essential component to promote healthy social and emotional development. So our next slide says relationship at the top, and it gives us a definition. So an emotional or other connection between people. All right, so let's take just a minute to introduce ourselves and talk about why we're here and how is relationships important to you. So I'll start with myself. I'm Kayleen. I'm the trainer today. I'm a director owner. And also I love teaching and love being in the classroom. I love coaching and being a model teacher. And why relationships with children is important to me. I guess I'm a little selfish in that way, in that it is very energetic and fulfills me to have those strong relationships. I don't know where else you would go to work where they cheer your name and give you hugs when you walk in the door. It's kind of like an episode of Cheers, only much happier. And they just fill me up with their joy, with their energy. And so that's a little bit about me. So we'll start with Leah.
Oh, hello, I'm Leah. I am an early childhood mental health support specialist at a center in Larimer County. I think why I'm here is this is personal and professional. In the sense around relationships is that coming from the infant mental health world, I understand that relationships are so important for the development or the healthy development of mental health for children. And so my own relationship with the kiddos, my children, both of them struggle with anxiety and a little bit of depression, and so wanted to be able to prevent that, I think, in other families, like having strategies in place where we're actually promoting well-being, and that comes with the social-emotional development, right? So that they can show up in their relationships with their peers better, show up in their relationships with their parents, their teachers, and then in the future with their own potential partners. Yes, this is very personal work for me.
That is fantastic. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
so
hopefully you're going to get some great stuff from this workshop for you today. I use these strategies in my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my children, my coworkers. They don't just work with children. So I think we'll have some things for you today. All right, so building relationships with children, why is it important? So the relationships that we build with the children, families, and our colleagues are the foundation of everything we do. It's important to build these relationships early rather than waiting until there's a problem. So I know, does anyone want to think back to one of our first session we talked about, we went through a whole bunch of information about statistics and data about why pyramid's important, why social emotional, building social emotional development and relationships is important rather than waiting till there's a problem. Does anybody want to speak to any of that? No, we can move on.
I will. I think that was so long ago. It's 4 sessions ago, right?
Yeah.
I think just from what I know is that it's easier to address and intervene early because some of those behaviors are not like set, I guess, in the children. And so if we can give them some coping mechanisms or those coping skills and give the teachers the skills to so help support that child, then the likelihood that those behaviors will intensify.
Yeah, what we do now is so important. We need to hit it early for the best and most positive outcomes. Children learn and develop in the context of relationships that are responsive, consistent, and nurturing. I love those 3 words. Responsive, consistent, and nurturing. And children with the most challenging behaviors especially need these relationships. And yet their behaviors often prevent them from benefiting from these relationships. So today we're going to talk about how we can bond with all of our class, but we're going to talk specifically about how we can build relationships with those children that do have some more challenging behaviors. Right, next slide. And this one starts with adult time and attention are very important to children, and we need to be sure that we are giving them the time and attention at times other than when they are engaging in challenging behavior. So positive practice means that we're focusing on the positive and that we have some strategies to cope with the challenging behavior when it occurs, but our focus is going to be on giving that attention at other times. And parents and other colleagues are critical partners in building children's social emotional competence. We all work together, that effective workforce on the bottom, that includes parents and families, community. We should all work together to ensure children's success and prevent challenging behaviors. Alrighty, we're gonna do a little large group activity here, and we're gonna play a little game, and it's called What Do You Observe? So we're gonna look at some photos, and we're gonna look for what are the indicators of social emotional competence, and what are the signs that they're participating in a relationship. All right, are we ready?
Yes.
All right, we see Daddy sitting on the couch with his infant. What do we think?
I'm supposed to observe,
What do you observe? And what are the indicators of social emotional competence? And are they in a relationship?
Okay, so the fact that the 2 of them together kind of implies that there's like a relationship. They're doing face-to-face eye contact. Baby is at the eye level of what I'm presuming is dad. I'm making an assumption. Both of them are smiling. They're looking at each other's eyes. They're close. He's holding the baby. So yes, this is definitely a positive and nurturing relationship from this picture.
Yeah, I would say so too. That was a lot of great examples, Leah. Thank you so much. Alrighty, let's flip to the next one. It should have a 12 in the corner.
Yep.
And we see another relationship. Alright, so what are the signs that they're participating in a relationship? Kayleen? You want to answer this one? Yes, I do. I'm guessing maybe a grandma, or it could be a caregiver, a home caregiver. She is cuddling the child, she's giving them physical attention. They're both smiling, clearly happy. relationship with each other. Alrighty, there's a couple more here, but we'll just kind of skip through.
Oh, I want to play some more.
Okay, alright then, I will take this one then. Alright, so we are in the garden, and it looks like this toddler has found something very interesting. And what I see is the adult in this relationship is putting her focus on what the child is focusing on. So if you work with infants and toddlers, you know, one way to engage an infant and toddler is just to put your focus on what their focus is. And so this is a care provider, could be at her preschool, just putting her focus on what the child is focusing on. And I see her kind of holding up the flower for the child to look at it, and the child's very engaged in what they're touching and seeing and feeling, and that the care provider is interacting with them through that way. So, do I see an indicator of social emotional competence? I do. I see it on the part of the caregiver, and the child's also very engaged, and they are definitely participating in a relationship. She is right down there with the child, her arms around the child. There's definitely a relationship going on. The child's definitely looking up like, who are you and what are you doing here? So, I love that one. All right, Leah, you get my favorite picture.
Oh my goodness. Alright, so I observe a group of kiddos. They're excited to see this person, this gentleman. Lots of hugs for everybody. Looks like a little sandwich. Hug. Down on the kiddo's level, bending down. Lots of smiles on everybody's part. And I think it almost looks like the caregiver is looking at the kiddo in the gray shorts and the pink, or the gray shirt and the pink shorts, so that eye contact is so important. The kiddo in the yellow shirt just seems really joyful.
Yeah.
And even though this is a group picture, I definitely think there's definitely a relationship here amongst all the kiddos and the care provider.
Yeah, that little girl in the yellow shirt, she's just beaming with joy, and the little boy he's facing, I just see, he's just so happy to get that little squish.
Yeah.
I can't even see the other two, they're just very engaged in participating in this relationship, obviously, that this adult has with the children in this classroom. All right.
Aren't we glad we didn't skip that one?
That's my favorite one. And then, of course, our next one is reading a book. So, a favorite thing of infants and toddlers. They just love to read books. And I see that both the child and the care provider are smiling. Obviously, maybe we're talking about noses, where their nose is. I don't know, but it looks like the adults, kind of got her head turned. She's definitely, following the child's lead with the book, it appears, allowing the child to kind of play with that story. They're both smiling. She's sitting on her lap. So there's physical contact, which is something I kind of noticed in every photo, is that there was physical contact between the care provider, whether that be a parent or teacher, and the children. So, all right. Oh, yay.
We can skip if you want to.
Okay, we'll skip this last one. All right. So, we get to this Yuri Brockenbrenner quote. Every child needs one person who is crazy about them. And so, maybe if on any given day you could be that one person for one child, you might be the only person that day that they feel is crazy about them. So we're going to do a little reflective inventory. So this is your first page that you have. It's blue at the top. And we're going to take just a minute to think about each question on this inventory and to write out some answers, so just a little time to reflect. When you complete the inventory, we're going to choose a partner to share your reflections with. So a few minutes to write down all of your ideas and thoughts, and then pick a person at your table, a partner at your table, or if you feel free or someone more comfortable you'd like to partner with, find someone in our group that you would like to discuss your reflections with. So we'll take about 3 minutes to do our reflection. Would you like the light on, Leah? Can you see what I have?
I'm okay, thank you for
Okay.
asking though.
All right, we need about 1 more minute. All right, if you want to choose a partner, Leah, would you like to be my partner?
Yes, hey Leah, I would love to be your partner.
All right, I'm going to move over to your table.
Okay. I'm gonna be honest, I always have a hard time with this reflection.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll answer the first one.
Okay.
Is that I think about satisfying relationships in my life, naming 3 things that make it satisfying. Really this joy of being with another person, this playfulness component of it, just having fun. Being intentional about being with that person and my time with that person. And then I think this goes back to the joy, is just laughing, and a lot of laughing. Yeah.
I put like comfortable, so for me, that I can be me. I don't have to pretend to be anyone else. That's something that in a satisfying relationship, that it's giving and reciprocal. So I know that that I can count on this person, and I also that they can count on me. And that the relationship is just based on sharing, whether that be sharing thoughts, being there emotionally, all those things.
Okay.
All right. What about messages you received about relationships from your family and culture? Okay, I see that maybe you don't want to talk about this one, so it's okay if you don't.
Well, thank you for that. But I think it's important because it is how I show up at work, right? Like I've changed my perspective.
Okay.
So growing up, I think relationships were a burden. Like that's what I was taught. Like you had to be perfect. You had to show up and be just some of the opposite things that Leaky said, right? You had to, you always had to be happy. Yeah, so it was a lot of work around relationships. So I didn't have a lot of close relationships when I was growing up. My mom worked 2 jobs, so that was kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why this
Okay.
is kind of a hard one for me
And I
to
bet-
do.
Yeah, well, I can see why. You know, that's when we talk about our family, and I know you work with families that are in the poverty cycle, that, you know, their parents do have 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we help them to be there for their child?
Right.
Because, you know, the poverty cycle, you know, it's a real thing. And you know, it's good that you have that background because you can really step into some of your family's shoes
Mm-hmm.
and know where they're at and be able to empathize with their situations. So in your work, I can see how that can be beneficial, but also I can see how, you know, that could be hard for you.
Thank you.
So I have it came from a very loving and giving family. Even though one of my parents was very ill, had a chronic illness for most of their life, we were still always, that family was important, that we helped each other, and that we were a service to others outside of our family, that we always, that part of helping others, it was very caring and nurturing. And the other thing that I learned when I joined my husband's family was I come from a family where you don't hold grudges. Like, you say what you have to say and everyone's allowed their own opinion, and then we just move on. And when I got married, I married into a family where that is not what happens. And that if you do share how you actually feel about things, someone might not talk to you for 2 years.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, and I just can't. Even when my husband's mad, I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you. Like, I am talking to him in 5 minutes. Like, I can't physically hold a grudge. And so some of the, when I work with coworkers, I let them know, like, I'm going to tell you how it really is, but just know, like, I'm just sharing that, and then we're going to move on, because I'm not going to be upset by it in 10 minutes. Like,
Right.
we're just going to have a discussion about it.
But they
So-
still made you upset.
Right. Exactly. So understanding that other people may hold grudges, I'm trying to understand that point of view. I really struggled there. How about thinking of yourself as a child? And do you behave in relationships with children the same way important adults behave with you? And can you put into words what you know to be true about your behavior with children in your life today?
That's a big question.
It is. It's a long
That's
question and a
big
hard one.
question. Let's see. I think no, I don't. Like, thinking back on my own childhood, and the adults in my childhood, I don't. I try hard not to show up that way. So I think when I'm with the children, particularly in our center, I'm very intentional about the way I walk into a classroom, the way I interact with the children, getting down on their level. So I'm very aware of that. What was the other part of it?
So you're tearing down your boundaries, those walls, where you intentionally know you have them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then being aware of them, and then working around them. So kind of just moving past that. And yet there's also some parts of me too where I do get triggered sometimes by some of the behaviors of the children, and I can be reactive to that. And then stepping away from that and saying, oh, it would have been better to have handled it X, Y, Z rather than, so being able to step back and reflect on that and not tear myself up too much about that.
It's always tomorrow, Leah.
Oh my gosh, I know, but then I go down the rabbit hole, I just ruin this child's life forever, it's like, so I think just being very intentional about the way I interact with the children.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I I just put that being patient. I was kind of the feisty temperament, so my parents had to be very patient with me, and so I try to be patient with kids, especially the kids with challenging behavior, and I try to be very physically loving to them, but also I am very clear with my expectations. So expectations of how we treat my body, but also, you know, the expectations of, you know, our classroom and their bodies.
Okay.
So nothing but with expectations. All right.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It is. Pyramid is hard work, isn't it? But so rewarding in the end. All right, I hope everybody had time to work in their small group.
I need chocolate after that.
Yes.
That was a tough one.
Yes, if you need a minute to take a drink, get a piece of chocolate.
Okay, shake it off.
Shake it up, shake it up. Okay. But Leah, if you'd like to talk more at the end of our session today, I am here and I am happy to reflect more with you.
All right, thank you.
You are so welcome. All right, so our next slide should say research at the top. And we're going to talk about that, the research base of pyramid, that adult responsivity shapes how verbal children will be, how emotionally secure he will feel, and how positive his adult relationships will become. And caregiver interactional behavior that includes some aspect of explicit contingent responsiveness was the best predictor of secure infant attachment. So, responding, what does that mean? Responding, anybody want to talk about that?
I actually have a question.
Yeah, sure.
What does explicit contingent responsiveness mean? What does the contingent mean?
It means every time. So at least this is what I believe it means, is that like infants need to know that whenever they cry, that someone is going to respond to them.
Okay.
And so if this is the study that I'm thinking about, so infants that were left to cry for 10 minutes before somebody responded, infants who maybe weren't held, so what that contingent responsiveness that happens every time, I believe that is true. But I can look that up and we can put that on our parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Right now, we can look that research up. Anybody else have a parking lot item they would like to put up?
What about some of our families who meet all of their children's needs, like cater to every single one of like co-sleeping, sleeping with the babies in there, and that's all they do, and then it makes it really difficult for our children in the classroom to fall asleep on their own, and all of that.
Yeah, so finding that boundary between being responsive and the boundary of teaching your child how to regulate. So, you know, we all have to learn how to regulate ourselves with strong emotions, and just to respond and live in the world that we live in. So finding that place of where the parents needs to be responsive so the infant knows that the parent is there, and you know, we have the safe sleep environment where our baby is best safe. That includes in the bed alone, in a sleep sack, and there are no adult sleeping surfaces safe for children. And you know, being able for that child to learn how to soothe themselves, how to be able to wake from that REM sleep and recycle back into the next sleep cycle. So
it's very frustrating when they come to us and they're not sleeping and the parents expect us to hold their babies all the time. I really don't believe that, LJ, but I'm just
well, you'll be glad to know that my coachee right now that I'm working with, this is one of her goals, is to put together a packet for parents to kind of explain what practices we have in our classrooms in early child care for infants and how that relates to best at-home practices. And explaining to parents if you're co-sleeping, like this is what's going to happen at school and this is going to be a hard transition. So, I can't wait to see how that project turns out, but that is something that at least my coaching is working on. So,
Interesting.
yes, very interesting. All right, so I don't know if we'll be able to watch this video, but we'll be researchers here for just a minute since it's not going to run. Nope.
Will it run on mine?
I don't know.
My phone has still face.
My link isn't working, but maybe I can find it. Here, I have it.
I have one.
All right. Well, let's all view in on Leah's and watch. Yes, this is it.
The emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 34 years ago when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age. And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions. They turn away. They feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
It's this experiment. I know. It's so hard to watch. But just remember, it was only 2 minutes.
Do you want to watch the rest of it, or?
Sure. This is very short.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
All right. All right. That could be a hard video to watch. But what does this experiment tell us? What do you think we learned about how infants and relationships work with care providers from watching the still-faced experiment?
Okay, I lost my train of thought. Say it again, please.
Okay, so watching the still-face experiment, what does this experiment tell us about relationships?
That there needs to be two people in like a partnership, like two people interacting in a relationship, like back and forth. What I heard this person say is that they have to be interacting back and forth, and they have to be kind of, the word I'm going to use is like attuning to each other.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think where this took me is like the whole cell phone thing right now. You know, parents are on their cell phone and children are not getting that engagement. They're trying really hard. This little one was trying everything that they possibly knew that worked in the past to get mom's attention that
Right.
wasn't, and that when it doesn't, it didn't, she was upset.
So, yeah, that tells us a lot. Leah, you were kind of drew on that fact that the child used everything that worked before. So they drew on their experience from the past and tried to use those same techniques. And then when they were not effective, the child had a response.
Response.
Yeah. What if the child is non-responsive, and how does this affect the responsiveness of the caregiver?
Okay, so, if the child is not responsive to the attempts from the care provider, is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm. What if the child's not responsive?
That makes it really hard on the provider to keep giving and giving. There needs to be this back and forth relationship, right?
Right.
This back and forth. You give me something, I'm gonna give it back.
Right.
Right? That, yeah.
Mhm. And how does this affect the responsiveness of the caregiver? So you just kind of mentioned that a little bit. Like, if children aren't being responsive, what happens to the care provider?
It reminds me a lot of my work with postpartum depression.
Oh.
Right? If mom's not being able to give anything to the baby shuts down.
Right.
Not fun.
So being responsive and being able to be responsive, be in a place where we can respond. All right, let's move to our next one. When caregivers do not respond consistently and supportively to infants crying, their brain structures are impacted and more likely to impact their later social regulation in preschool. So, how does that feel to everybody? Are you good, Leah?
Huh? Yeah, I'm reading again.
Okay, all right. We should be on slide 22.
Yes, thank you.
And,
So
so, when caregivers do not respond consistently and supportively to infant crying, the actual structures of their brain are impacted and are more likely to impact later social regulation in preschool.
Okay. Makes.
So, I don't know, one thing that kind of comes to mind is the cry it out philosophy,
Oh, yes.
you know? Okay, so we have a large group activity. We did this activity a little while back, Leah, our hot buttons.
Yes.
So we're just going to take a minute to think back to what your hot buttons were, or one of your hot buttons.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about how they might affect your relationship with the child. We kind of talked about that a little bit in our reflection today too. And how do they affect your relationship with families or colleagues? So,
Is that a handout?
it is, and we have already done this
Okay.
activity, I don't know.
Okay, I didn't bring that with me, so
That's
fine.
okay.
So,
All right,
just
just
reflecting on my
think
hot.
back on one of your hot buttons.
Yes, I got it.
So the one I shared earlier was the for no reason. So one of my hot buttons with my coworkers is when they tell me that a child did something for no reason. So children don't do anything for no reason. And just that, for some reason, that language just makes me crazy. So
Okay.
that is the hot button I shared earlier. And so as soon as I hear that language, I am like, pop, right at the top. And so, it's not a time for, discussion. I know that when I'm there, I need to wait before I want to respond and not react to my coworker or my colleague, so that we can have a actual discussion that could take us someplace rather than just a reaction that I might give when that hot button is pushed. So think in your mind of maybe one of the hot buttons you shared.
Yep.
Or another hot button that you might have. We probably have multiples. All right, and so If you look at your next slide, managing personal stress and thought control. So we have some upsetting thoughts and we have calming thoughts. So I would say that when we're at the top of that hot button activity, or hot button, that's where all those upsetting thoughts are coming in, like this child is a monster, this is getting ridiculous, there's never going to be change, I'm sick of putting out fires, it's been 5 years, why are we still talking about children not doing something for no reason? The child did not bite for no reason, they bit for a reason. To where we can get to some of those calming thoughts. So this child is testing me to see where my limits are, and my job is to stay calm and help him learn better ways to behave. I can handle this, I'm in control. They have just learned some powerful ways to get control. It's one of my personal favorites. I love that one. I should print that and put it on my wall. And I will teach them more appropriate ways that they can behave. Alrighty, and then we get to how do we manage that personal stress? How do we get those thought controls? So our upsetting thought, I wonder if the corner grocery store is hiring. He ruins everything. This is going to be the worst year of my career. To the calming thoughts, I feel undervalued right now. I need to seek support from my peers and supervisor. Having her in my class is going to be a wonderful professional development experience. All right, so we are going to have a reframing activity. So it's going to be a small group. So we are going to have this reframing activity right here. It looks like this.
Is that handout 1.3?
It is
Okay.
handout 1.3, and it says reframing activity. So on one side we have our problem statements, and then we have a reframe statement, just to give us some examples here. So if we look at the first one, he whines from the moment he gets here until the time he gets on the bus to go home. So a reframe statement might sound like, he must really miss his family. She is clingy not only to her mother, but with other adults as well. She might be slow to warm up in her new settings or in the presence of other children and adults. All right, so we have some room here at the bottom. And we are going to kind of number off here 1 through 4, and we're going to have the 1s go over to this side of the room, 2's in this corner, 3's in this corner, 4's in that corner. So we're going to get up and move about the room, meet some new people, and we are going to write down a couple of your hot buttons. And then as a team, you can work together on helping writing a reframe statement for some of your hot buttons. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1s, we're going to get up and move over here. 2s, we're going to get up and move over there. 3s and 4s. 2s. All right, 2s. I'm a 2 too. Hey! I'm going to move over here with the 2s. Okay. So our reframing activity. So I'll just write down mine.
Okay.
Do you have 1 or 2 to talk about? 2. Oh man, I can okay. Apparently I'm very reactive. Alright. Okay.
Spitting.
Spitting. Oh, spitting. Yeah, that is a problem. That is a hot button.
Spitting.
Okay, so what would your statement be when someone spits on you?
Oh, gross.
Not okay.
Don't you spit at me.
Uh-huh.
I think my response is to lecture. That is gross, that's dirty, that's not healthy, you're spreading germs.
Okay.
It's COVID, where's your mask?
All right, so
I also might be a little bit of a germaphobe, so that.
Okay. All right, so this is a hot mess. All right, so let's brainstorm on it.
Okay, so
Statement.
rephrase. This is a really
Instead of
difficult
saying,
one.
don't spit on me, blah, 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 blah.
Well, here's my question for you.
Yeah.
Once we get to spitting, this child is, I'm guessing, not going to be able to hear much of what we do. So even saying something to them at this point would not do us any good. So my reframing would be,
Your calming thoughts.
my calming thoughts is that this child is having a difficult moment. It's not about, he's not necessarily spitting at me, he's spitting in response to his emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so this is
It's not
an
personal.
emotional response.
Yeah. I think my initial one is it's personal, but then if I think about it, it's not personal.
Right, this child's having some kind of emotional response.
Right, but as the spit is dripping off my cheek, it's really difficult for me to get there.
Sure.
If
so-
I'm gonna be honest.
Right, so we have our upsetting thought, which is, this is disgusting, this is gross, I do not like spitting, that is very unacceptable to me, to what might your calming reframe statement for yourself, to yourself be, when a child spits on you. You said, this child's having an emotional response.
Right.
So what else could you, calming thoughts, could you give yourself? It's not about me, you also
It's
said
not about
you.
me.
You
It's
also
not
said that.
personal. Honestly, I think also, I don't know if this is an option, I think I might need to tap out for a second and say, can someone else come in? And I don't know if that's an option. And then I can go and do my self-calming, right?
Sure.
Rather than get into this
Yeah,
battle.
I mean, one of the things to know is that when you're at that place and where that place is, and then you have a plan in place for when that happens, and then whether your calming thoughts, whether it's your reframe statement, is your getting support for yourself, is that this child is having an emotional response and it is not
Not
personal about me.
I think those are my two key lines. Those are my key, because I will totally go, oh my gosh, he hates me, and I'm not really liking this kid right now. So it's not personal. Personal. What about you?
Those were your words.
No, that's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
okay. All right. We talked about for no reason. This is also coming from the management perspective is when the teachers tell me they don't listen to me. So
The teachers say that about the children.
yes,
Children don't.
yes,
Okay.
the children don't listen to me.
Okay.
So the room is chaos, and the teacher says, maybe some unsafe behaviors are happening. They just don't listen to me.
Okay.
Okay. So my response is to that is just like, well, what do you think you could do so they would listen to you? How do you think you might speak to them that they might listen to you?
In that tone of voice?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
But I don't, but that's what's going in my head. The real in my head is, my upsetting thoughts is, you're the teacher. You need to get them to listen to you. How could you get them to listen to you? And, what, let's talk about, or I'm not even to the talk about stage. This is your job.
Okay.
And you need to engage.
Figure it out.
Yes, so I can't say any of those things, but that's going on my head. You
Okay.
are the early childhood teacher, you need to figure it out. They will listen to you if you talk to them in a way that they will hear you.
Okay.
Clearly, they're not hearing how you're talking to them. Those are my upsetting thoughts. So help me process.
Yes.
So they don't listen to me. A reframe statement or a calming thought for myself could be, this teacher's asking for support. Okay. This teacher is asking for support.
It makes me wonder what they're feeling. The teachers, are the teachers feeling
Yeah.
like unheard? somewhat.
I wonder what the teacher's feeling. How can I help? Okay. That would be very calming. This teacher is asking for support. I wonder what the teacher's feeling. How can I help you? Those will be very calming.
In a nice tone of voice.
That's gonna count, right? Well, I mean, it really is about that. That's what Pyramid's all about, is like taking that punishment side of our brain and pushing that to the back and finding the way to talk about our needs and support people with intentionality using positive statements. And that includes to ourselves.
So this is great, but when you're in the moment, it's so hard. So being able to calm yourself.
That's why we're writing
before-
these down, Leah, so that we have these put in our little index cards.
Okay.
And now, when I walk into the classroom and it's chaos and the teacher's saying they don't listen to me, I'm going to take 3 breaths.
Okay.
And then I'm going to say, I hear you're asking for some support. Tell me what you're feeling. How can I help?
Ooh, I feel seen and heard as a teacher now.
See?
Oh
But
my
I have to,
gosh.
that's what this activity is about. Is like, now I have a response for that.
Okay.
Now I know what to say when I walk in the room and the teacher says that they're not listening to her. Now, because I've done this exercise, I have a response to that. I'm gonna write this on an index card.
I like that. That's
Clip
great.
it in my day timer. All right, Leah, let's have you share one more.
Oh, my other one is, and I don't like this word, but I'm gonna be honest, it is a hot button, and I know this is more about me than about the children, but this non-compliance. I've asked you to do something.
Expectations that you do.
Yes. You are not listening, like physically not looking at me or hearing me, which now I think, I need to get on the child's level and get their attention. Yeah, so in this, it's like personally, the non-compliance is this, for me, this control piece. So I do know that is about me and not about the child.
So your upsetting thought is that the child is in control right now?
And disrespecting me.
And disrespecting you.
And I need to gain back the control.
Okay, so that's your upsetting thought. Okay, so that's what's going through your head when this happens.
Right?
Okay, I hear you.
I should
hear
not be
you.
in a classroom. I should go work at the grocery store.
No, Miss Leah, this is all about figuring out how we can respond to that so that next time it happens, you know what to do.
Okay,
So let's think about what's that reframe statement, what's that calming thought that you can have, because this situation is for sure going to come up again.
Right.
You work in early childhood.
Right. So understanding, again, it's not personal. They're not trying to take control from me.
Oh, they are. I think you're wrong.
Damn it. I'm sorry.
However, that doesn't mean it has to be successful.
And recognizing, these are hard.
I'm 5. I'm totally trying to
we have
take
so
control.
much better more fun on yours than my teaching. Okay, so first of all, it's not personal. Again, that is going to be my mantra. It's not personal.
It's not personal.
And maybe I changed the challenge from they're trying to take control from me to the challenge of, I had it there a minute, now it's gone. Like, how do I be sometimes we don't want to do stuff, and for a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, they are exhibiting their independence, which is developmentally appropriate.
Sure, I hear a lot of I wonder statements.
Ooh. And yes, and then I wonder how can I get my need met for you to clean up the block area in a way that gets both of our needs met, if that makes sense. So
Sure.
I'm meeting the child's need by let's figure out a way to do this in a more exciting way,
Mhm.
and I'm getting my blocks cleaned up at the same time. Like this
Right.
win-win, like taking it away from control to a win-win situation.
There you go.
How was
By
that?
giving up control,
Ah!
you gain control by saying, how can I achieve this goal? Through positive, a positive way. Because this is about you wanting to clean up, right? They're being non-compliant. So, how can I achieve this goal in another way?
Right. Oh, but then what if and then the rabbit hole is then what if that way doesn't work and we're still 15 minutes later still trying to get those blocks cleaned up?
Oh, well, I mean, let's think about that. What could some other ways to achieve the goal, what could that look like?
Getting blocks cleaned up. We could. Well, there's tons of ways I'm thinking about it. Like
Yeah.
make it fun. Like we could pick up all the red blocks. We could invite a friend to make it a game,
Teamwork,
right?
Teamwork makes it dream work if they want teamwork.
Right. We could take turns, the child and I could
Ah.
actually be a participant, especially if I was playing with the blocks with the child.
Yes, oh, that sounds exciting. You're a play partner in cleaning up.
So
Nice.
tons of ideas.
Tons of ideas. So, the reframe statement is, how could I achieve this goal in another way?
And it's not personal.
It's not personal, yes, it's not personal. I wonder how I could achieve this goal in another way. That's what I wrote down, because I read into this one too.
Okay.
So I'm going to use that statement of yours also.
And now I'm just looking, I'm imagining my face as I'm sitting there with a non-compliant child, and me just like going off into space going, I wonder, and the child's going, what the heck is going on here?
Dude, just print it out, put it on your wall. That's what I do.
wonder.
I wonder how I could achieve this goal another way. I would just print that out, tape it to the wall.
There's so much stuff on the wall.
That's okay, you just have to know where to look.
Okay.
Where is it good for you to look?
Up at my level, not
Yes,
at their
yes,
level.
it's not for them, it's totally for you.
In a pretty frame.
Yes, I deck mine on scrapbooking paper, so it looks pretty, and I sometimes draw little pretty happy things on it, and then I put it where I'm gonna see it, because then when I'm like, I wonder, I see that you're standing on the train table, I wonder if you still want to play with trains, or maybe you're done and you want to go somewhere else. The block area is open, yard area is open, would you like some help, teamwork, or do you want to pick up the trains by themselves?
That was so good. You've been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Yes. Okay, I hope everybody had fun in their reframing activity. I think that's always a fun activity to work in your small groups and how to kind of think of ways you can respond differently in situations that you run into often. Alrighty, so essential caregiving characteristics. So response quality, ability to respond promptly and appropriately. Asynchrony, being reciprocal and rewarding. Mutuality, so you're having joint attention. And then the next slide, positive attitude, positive effect toward children. Stimulation, play and encouragement, and support. So kind of look back at your reframe statements. I heard a lot of these things in those reframed statements. And that is great. So just a reminder, as we talked about before, temperament and attachment come into play when we're talking about problems and hot buttons and behaviors when working with young children. So, attachment refers to the continuing and lasting relationships that young children form with one another or more adults. Attachment refers especially to one aspect of the adult-child relationship, the child's sense of security and safety when in the company of a particular adult. So, attachment. Think about that for a few minutes. All right, so I don't know, where are we at time? Do we want to watch this video or are we good?
It's up to you.
I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, we already watched one. Okay, LJ, we're gonna move on.
Our activities were so much fun, we're behind.
Okay, so let's go to
Oh, are we done?
Yes.
Ah, all
I
right.
think so. I think I'm gonna go replace
Yeah,
this
we were
one.
definitely an hour.
Okay.
Turn the light on.
Yeah. Whoa.
Sorry.
Let the light shine. Okay, how did that feel,
Oh,
Leah?
that was fun. Okay. 1, orientation to training. Sets the context for the training. The participants fully understand the context of the pyramid model and inclusion. Can positively impact children, families, and their own practices. Research base. Candidate gives a brief overview of the training and refers to its evidence base. Yes. Relationship. Candidate demonstrates respect for the training participants whom they are orienting. This has been done by showing the knowledge of the participants' skills and honoring participants' accomplishments and baseline knowledge about the peer model inclusion. Candidate uses the following 3 relationships building strategies. In the welcome to the training, the candidate acknowledges who the participants are and the related workforce. Not known, this time is spent encouragement learning. Candidate honors the participants' specific accomplishments. Candidate learns the names of participants and uses them frequently. I'm giving you an M. Alright, setting up the environment and culture for adult learning. They assist the participants in developing a group learning community and building a sense of group culture. Adult learning strategies are induced and used throughout the sessions to manage environmental and technical difficulties in a professional manner, created shared experiences, and recognize personal biases. Participants self-reflect and evaluate training content and facilitation. Kennedy develops a safe, effective learning environment by using the following 5 adult learning strategies with participants in reviewing and or adding them. Parking lot, yep. Ground rules, yep. Training logistics, yep. Learning objectives, and handout review.
Yay, I remember the handout.
I know, it almost has to be on the slide,
I
right?
know, yes.
Pyramid model training fidelity. The candidate covers required training content to fidelity and makes any necessary adjustments to meet participants' needs for content engagement. The candidate provides information in clear and engaging training style and utilizes specific feedback from participants to improve training skills and earn the confidence of the participants. Candidate demonstrates the following 3 skills when training. Candidate has a clear, organized method of training required. Information to fidelity, yes. Candidate adapts examples to keep participants engaged and honor their skills, yes. And candidate utilizes feedback from participants, asks for this in real time, and using information from the training evaluation. That's a yes, that's an M.
Yeah, I remember to talk about the training evaluation at the end of the time.
We just like throw it in there. Evaluation.
At the end.
Audio visual, the candidate explains and proficiently uses videos for visual experiential learners. Candidate briefs the context for the video segments, uses videos competently to give a visual example of the verbal content, and debriefs video observations asking for participant reflections. I think you did all of those. Activity skills. Blah, 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 blah. Briefs activities. Gives clear instructions for activities. Relates activities to presented content. Asks if participants have questions about activities. And debriefs the activities asking for participant reflections. Yes. Adult learning skills.
I think one thing I could do better, like if we were really training the group, is making sure when the activities come back,
Yep.
to ask for anyone who would like to share something that happened in their small group, which I
Oh,
think
because we
about
didn't
doing
do-
because we've never really done
Right.
that.
But we would have, I imagine that you would have done that.
I would imagine.
Yes. Adult learning, Didn't use the pyramid, but I'm not going to, I'm just gonna give you an M on that because it was auditory, visual, kinesthetic, social, and solitary. Because I'm getting hung up on the kit.
Yeah.
Because there are times that you may not use the kit,
Right,
right?
because especially like on this, we're talking about responsive relationships. I mean, I'm not quite sure how I would use the kit, but it's something to ponder.
But it's not all about the kit though,
Right.
right? In my mind.
Me either.
The candidate demonstrates the ability to manage participants' needs skillfully and respectfully throughout the training, such as personal manners, parking lot issues, participant questions. Candidate responds to participants' needs and questions in a respectful and skillful manner. You did that. You offered to meet me after class. Then there was the whole parents are just obnoxious because blah 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 blah.
And we put something on the parking lot and then
We put something in the parking lot. Okay. Bam, well done.
And LJ, I even did the breathing activity to get me ready for the training today. That was my coaching, my personal coaching thing was like, you need to stop and breathe before you start anything.
That's what your goal was?
Yes, because I bring so much energy from wherever I'm coming.
Right.
You know? And so it's just like, stop. LJ was like, you need to stop and you need to breathe and you need to figure out what hat you're wearing.
Oh, that is hard.
And get ready for what, you're jumping into, because I bring a lot of energy maybe from other places.
From other places.
That is kind of, one of my personal goals, so I'm still working on it.
So, yeah, mine are like, levels are.
Because I do, I'm like a high engine member, so.
Oh, I am too. No, and I liked it. It felt good to do that relaxation. And I should add that just into mine.
I just need to do it. Every time
Right.
I get into every training, just being like, I'm gonna have to. Oh, I have that yoga pretzels cards in my classroom, but I'm gonna borrow those back.
Right?
They just have also, besides yoga things, they just have like breathing exercises, different ones. Yeah.
Well, and what a great, like I talked in the last one, is like, what a great way for teachers to just, then you could use those skills in the classroom, like teach the children the same things that we're doing here in our little workshop.
Yeah. Awesome.
We did it.
We did it. Yay. Bye, LJ.